My name is Lillian Hayes. I planned my cousin's entire wedding, but I wasn't even on the guest list. And when my aunt asked me to plan her daughter's wedding, I didn't hesitate. She hugged me and said, "You're the only one I trust with this." And I believed her. So I gave it everything. Every detail. Every decision. Every late night. Because in my mind, I wasn't just helping. I was part of it. But a week before the wedding, I realized something I wasn't prepared for. I was never meant to be there. Before I show you what happened behind that wedding, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Because this story isn't about a wedding. It's about what happens when you realize you were only ever needed, not valued. It began simply. A conversation, a request, something that sounded small at first. Can you help us organize a few things? But that few things quickly became everything, because once I said yes, the responsibility kept growing, and I didn't stop it, because I thought, that's what family does. My aunt kept repeating the same thing. I trust you more than anyone, and every time she said it, I worked harder, because trust feels like recognition. It feels like value. And I thought, I was being chosen for a reason. The venue, I handled it. The decor, I designed it. The catering, I coordinated every detail, every call, every confirmation, every problem came to me, and I fixed it. Quietly. Without asking for anything in return. There were nights when I didn't sleep properly, calls running late, messages unanswered until morning, fixing issues no one else even knew existed. And still, I kept going, because I believed I mattered in this. At the rehearsal dinner, something small happened. One of my cousins laughed and said, "Oh, I thought you were just helping staff." People smiled, moved on, changed the subject, like it meant nothing. But it stayed with me, because sometimes small comments reveal big truths. I told myself it was nothing, just a joke, just a misunderstanding. But something about it didn't sit right, because jokes usually come from somewhere. And that moment felt like a glimpse of how they saw me. After that, I started noticing more. The way I was spoken to, the way decisions were made without including me, the way my work was expected, but never acknowledged. And slowly, things began to feel different. A week before the wedding, I asked something simple. What time should I arrive? A normal question, something any family member would ask. But her response wasn't normal. She paused for a second, then said, "Early. Staff should be there before guests." I didn't respond immediately, because that word, staff, didn't fit. Not after everything I had done, not after everything I handled. That's when something inside me went quiet. Not loud, not emotional, clear. Because in that moment, I understood something. I wasn't being included. I was being used. If you think I confronted her right away, you're wrong. Because what I found next proved they never saw me as family. After that conversation, I didn't react immediately. I didn't question her again. Instead, I went back and checked something simple. The guest list, the same list I had helped organize, the same one I updated multiple times. Names, seating, invitations, everything. And when I searched for mine, it wasn't there. Not as a guest, not as family, not at all. At first, I thought I missed it, so I checked again. Slower this time, line by line, every section, every category. Because sometimes you don't expect to not be there, and that expectation makes you doubt yourself. But no matter how many times I checked, the result didn't change. That's when it became real, not emotional, clear. Because this wasn't an accident, not after everything I had handled, not after all the coordination, not after being involved in every single detail. You don't forget someone like that. You remove them. I went back to my aunt, didn't raise my voice, didn't accuse her. I just asked, was I not invited? She didn't look surprised, didn't hesitate, just slightly annoyed, and said, "Don't make this awkward. You're already involved." That sentence explained everything, because it wasn't denial. It wasn't confusion. It was dismissal. Like my role had already been decided, and my place wasn't at the table. After that, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not emotionally, quietly. Because when something becomes clear, you stop trying to fix it. You stop explaining. You stop hoping it will change. You just see it for what it is. That night, I opened the vendor emails again. Not to work, not to fix anything, but to look. Because now, I wasn't involved emotionally, I was observing. And when you observe, you notice things you ignored before. There was one message, buried in a thread, casual tone, between my aunt and a vendor. "She won't charge like professionals." I stared at that sentence, because now it made sense. I wasn't chosen because I was trusted. I was chosen because I was convenient, because I would say yes, because I wouldn't charge, because I wouldn't question anything. And that realization hurt more than the exclusion. And in that moment, everything changed. Not in a dramatic way, in a controlled way, because now I wasn't reacting as family. I was thinking clearly, and when you think clearly, you stop being part of their plan. If you think that was the worst part, you're wrong, because what I found the next morning proved they were already planning to cut me off. The next morning, I didn't wake up angry. I didn't wake up emotional. I woke up clear. Because once something becomes real, it doesn't feel confusing anymore. It feels settled. Like your mind has already accepted it, before your emotions catch up. And instead of avoiding everything, I went back to it, not to fix it, to understand it completely. I opened the vendor thread again, scrolled slowly, not searching for anything specific, just reading everything, without assumption this time. And then, I saw it, a message I had missed before, short, casual. "After the wedding, we won't need her anymore." I stopped scrolling, because that line wasn't unclear. It wasn't frustration, it wasn't stress. It was planning. Because won't need her anymore doesn't happen suddenly. It's decided beforehand, and in that moment, everything connected. The guest list, the comments, the tone, all of it was leading to this. I didn't react right away, didn't close the screen, didn't distract myself. I just sat there, reading that message again, because sometimes the truth needs a moment to settle, not to hurt you, but to become real. And once it becomes real, you can't ignore it anymore. That's when I understood something clearly. This wasn't about family. Not really. Because family doesn't plan to remove you. Family doesn't use you, then quietly step away. This was about convenience, about getting what they needed, without giving anything back. Before that moment, a small part of me still wondered, maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's not that deep. But after reading that, there was no doubt left. No confusion, no second guessing, just clarity. And clarity changes everything. Later that day, I saw him again, the photographer, and for the first time, I noticed something I hadn't fully realized before. He had seen everything, the long hours, the pressure, the way I was treated, and he never ignored it. At one point, he looked at me quietly and said, "You did everything for them." Pause. "Did anyone do anything for you?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't have one. And that silence said more than words could. That's when the difference became undeniable. On one side, people who needed me, who used me, who expected me. On the other, someone who saw me, without asking, without taking, without expecting anything in return. And that difference changed how everything felt. That night, I made my decision. Not emotional, not reactive, clear. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to argue, because they had already shown me everything. Instead, I was going to let things play out, exactly as they planned. But this time, on my terms. If you think I walked away quietly, you're wrong. Because what I did next happened on the wedding day. After everything I found, I didn't quit. I didn't walk away. And I didn't confront anyone. Because that's what they expected. That I would react. That I would make it emotional. That I would create tension. But I didn't. I stayed exactly where I was. Same role, same position, same calm energy. But internally, everything had changed. I stopped going beyond what was asked, stopped fixing things before they became problems, stopped carrying responsibilities that were never clearly mine. Because this time, I wasn't trying to prove my value anymore. I was letting them see what happens when I stop overgiving. On the surface, nothing looked wrong. The venue was booked. The decor had been finalized. The catering schedule was set. Every vendor had their instructions, because I had already done all of that. Weeks of work, late nights, constant coordination. Everything they needed was already in place. And that's why no one questioned anything. Because when things look organized, people assume everything is under control. They didn't see the invisible work, the follow-ups, the confirmations, the small adjustments I used to handle quietly. And this time, I wasn't doing any of that. Before, if something wasn't confirmed, I confirmed it. If something felt unclear, I clarified it. If something was missing, I fixed it, without being asked. Because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. But now, I stopped. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, out of awareness. Because I realized I had turned myself into the system that kept everything running. And the moment I stepped back from that, the system had to run on its own. And that difference is what they were about to feel. I didn't want drama. I didn't want chaos. I didn't want a scene. Because loud problems can be blamed. They can say, she overreacted. She created issues. She ruined everything. But quiet truth can't be twisted. When things slowly stop working, people start asking real questions, and those questions lead to answers. That's what I wanted. Not to prove anything, but to make everything visible, because for too long, my effort had been invisible. The last 24 hours before the wedding felt unusually calm. No urgent calls, no last-minute panic, no constant messages. Everything looked smooth. Everything felt ready. And that's exactly why. No one checked anything deeply. Because when things appear perfect, people relax. They stop paying attention. They stop questioning details. And that false sense of control is what allowed everything to continue unnoticed. But I knew something they didn't. Things weren't perfect. They were just not being held together anymore. The day started beautifully. Guests arriving, music playing softly, everything moving forward, exactly as planned. From the outside, it looked flawless. And I stood there, watching it all unfold. Not as family, not as staff. Just present. Observing everything clearly for the first time, because before, I was too busy fixing things to actually see anything. But now, I could see everything. Then something small happened. Catering was slightly delayed, not canceled, not wrong, just not managed on time. And for most people, it didn't feel serious. Just a small delay. Something that happens. But I noticed something else. No one knew how to fix it. Because before, I would have already handled it. Quietly, without anyone noticing. But this time, I didn't move. Then decor. Small sections incomplete. A few elements missing. Some placements slightly off. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obvious. Just not perfect. And slowly, people started noticing, not panic, not chaos, confusion. Because everything was supposed to be flawless. And for the first time, it wasn't. Coordinators started asking questions. Vendors checking timelines. People looking around, trying to understand what was happening. And suddenly, there were no clear answers. Because the person who used to hold everything together wasn't doing it anymore. And that's when they started looking at me differently, not as someone helping quietly, but as someone they depended on. And for the first time, they realized that. That's when I saw it. My aunt's expression change from confident to uncertain, from calm to concerned. Because for the first time, things weren't fully under control, and she didn't know why. And in that moment, everything I had done, everything I had carried, everything I had handled finally became visible. Not because I said anything, but because I stopped hiding it. And that's when I knew. The moment had arrived. The moment had already built itself. No need to create it. No need to force it. Everything was already slightly off. And that's when I stepped forward. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for them to notice me. Because for the first time, I wasn't in the background anymore. I was visible. And they didn't expect that. My aunt looked around, trying to fix everything, trying to control the situation. What is happening? Her voice wasn't calm anymore. It wasn't confident. It was panicked. Because for the first time, things weren't going according to her plan. And that's when she looked at me. I didn't rush to speak. I let the moment sit. Let the confusion stay. Then I said calmly, "You said I was handling everything." Pause. Just long enough for her to remember. Then I added, "But I wasn't invited to stay." And just like that, everything went silent. No one moved. No one spoke. No one tried to correct it. Because that sentence didn't need explanation. It connected everything. The guest list, the comments, the way I was treated. And for the first time, everyone saw it. Not through me, but through what happened. My cousin looked at me, confused, then quietly said, "I didn't know." And I believed her. But she didn't stop it. She didn't question anything before. She didn't notice. And that told me something important. Not knowing doesn't mean you weren't part of it. No one argued. No one justified it. No one tried to explain it away, because there was nothing to explain. Everything was already clear, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to say more, because the truth was already there. I didn't stay, didn't wait for apologies, didn't look for reactions, because I wasn't there for closure. I already had it. So I turned, started walking away, calm, steady, without hesitation. Because once you see your place clearly, you stop trying to stay where you don't belong. And for the first time, I wasn't alone. He was there, standing beside me, not stepping ahead, not trying to fix anything, just present. And that presence felt different from everything else, because it wasn't based on need. It was real. As we walked out, I didn't feel angry, didn't feel hurt, didn't even feel relieved. I felt clear, because clarity removes everything else. It removes doubt, it removes confusion, and it leaves truth. And in that moment, everything made sense. They trusted me with their perfect day, relied on me, needed me, but never gave me a place in it. And when I stopped holding everything together, the truth showed itself. Without effort, without argument, just reality. They trusted me with their perfect day, but never gave me a place in it. So I stopped holding it together. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and comment where you're watching from, because sometimes the hardest truth isn't being used. It's realizing you allowed it for too long.